Now, I will tell you, I went down to McNally Jackson to buy my first guest book. It is entitled Infested, How the Bedbug Infiltrated Our Bedrooms and Took Over the World. Here it is right there. You can see the cover, and maybe you get a sense of why the clerk at McNally Jackson suggested I get a bag for this. And she wasn't wrong. Gives me the creepy crawlies just thinking about it. But here it is. That's the book, and it's just full of wonderful things. And we're going to talk to the author of this, and she's a bed bug expert, and she writes for Popular Science and maintains a blog called Our Modern Plagues. Please welcome Brooke Borel. Come on over. That's for you.
All right.
Got you under my skin. Was that what that was?
Well, I thought we had a little more time.
I know. Okay, Brooke, it's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
It's bright.
It's bright up here in
Yeah,
the
it is.
spotlight when you're talking about
It
that,
is.
but you know deeply. Now, I should just say, I want to point out from the top here that you don't only cover bed bugs, though
No.
you are now a bed bug expert, and you have to
No.
live with that.
Yeah, I think it would be actually a little depressing if that's all I covered, but yeah, I cover other things.
Yes, and one of the things that with a modern plague, what would be a modern plague?
Modern plagues are really anything that plagues us these days. I write a little bit about, I write about modern plagues and also how we use science and technology to combat them and how that can either go really well or go really poorly, depending on how well we do that. I write a lot about agriculture, about vaccines, about all kinds of infectious diseases, bed bugs, other insects. Lots of insects.
And one of the things you were talking about recently was bugs, eating bugs, like crickets and that kind of a thing, right? That this
Right.
may be, is that the future?
Yeah, so that was a story. No, well, some people say it is. Some people say it is. I'm not entirely convinced, but I wrote that story for Popular Science for the magazine, and then I did an extra blog piece to talk about some other factors.
Well, I was in Texas not long ago and had a couple of cricket tacos, and they weren't bad.
Were they good though?
No, not good either. No, they were not good. But we're probably years away from bedbug tacos, right?
Yeah. Although in the past, actually, a long time ago, the Greeks actually used to mash up bed bugs in different, medical treatments and stuff like this. I'm not
Sure.
recommending that. I don't think they necessarily worked, but people have eaten bed bugs.
I want to be clear that none of the medical advice that you hear tonight on this show
That's a good-
should be taken
good thing.
and actually applied. But now you got into this bedbug scene the way that many of us have. I mean, in a way, anybody in New York is a bedbug expert. But because you had the things.
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times.
3 times. 3 times in apartments. So once in 2004 in Hell's Kitchen, twice in the same summer in Greenpoint in 2009, and then I got them in a hotel room in Chicago last year. Too.
It's almost as if you're the
How do you think I'm going to sell books?
you do anything for it, I get it. We got to chase the almighty dollar. Well, and so from that experience, you said, well, I want to get to the bottom of this. And some of the people that you talk to have been keeping these bed bugs alive for years in various tubes and that kind of thing. And they have you ever been given an assignment where you said, no, thanks? You know, I don't want to.
An assignment in general?
Like
or about bed
a
bugs?
science thing? An assignment?
No, I mean, I wrote an entire book on bed bugs, so I guess that kind of answers your question, doesn't it?
So now you have nothing. No
Yeah.
threshold. That really did it. That's I go into every situation with a great deal of fearlessness, as my listeners know, just brazenly charging ahead. There's few things that really get to me. Socks on carpet is one of them. Once you tune into it, it's impossible to get away from the sound I'm talking about, and bugs. I really don't care for bugs. So even talking to you now, I feel as if I should be taping my sleeves up and wearing my socks on the outside.
A lot of people react to me that way, actually.
What about those places, you go to the Science Museum and the person has, you go to the insect place and they put like a hissing cockroach on their arm and let it walk?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
not a kind of gal that I would date. That's...
Good thing I'm married, because I've done that before.
Oh my goodness, well, good thing. That is why I go to the museums, though, to find a mate. Something about low lighting and the nice audible tours that they do of the shows. But the point is, you've got this, now these things started, as so many plagues did, in the Middle East?
Wow, that was loaded. Well, the idea, the best theory out there is that bed bugs originated maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago, maybe 250,000 years ago, although scientists are still pinpointing that, possibly in the Mediterranean, along the seaboard, in what is now the Middle East. But that exact thing isn't necessarily fact at this point, but that's the best theory. And the bugs were living probably in these caves, and they were feeding on bats, and some of our early ancestors went in and started living in those caves, and some of the bugs shifted attention to them and eventually followed them all over the world to today.
Well, one of the things you point out in the book is the fact that, these 60 years or so where DDT was used and effective, and it just coated everything. I guess all of the world had a nice blanket of DDT everywhere, which is fantastic. But that this 60 years without bed bugs is really abnormal, that we've reverted to a natural state.
Yeah.
That's comforting to think about.
Is it?
No, it's not. That's our natural state, is to have these things preying on us and sucking our blood. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we've lived with them for a very long time. If that 250,000 year thing holds up, which it might not, it might have been more recent, but if that is the number, then that means they predate modern humans.
Yeah.
If the number for modern humans holds up as well. But they've been around for a very, very long time in our history, that 60 years, and they weren't really gone. They just were so rare in certain parts of the world that we didn't know that they were really there, but they were still in pockets around the world. But yeah, we've lived with them for a long time.
A long time. And, I had the experience myself of not having them, but thinking that I did. And you have the little, people here may be familiar with this, but you call the dog in. And you say, Roscoe, and you say, hey, Roscoe, I think I gathered there might be bed bugs over in the outlet. And then wouldn't you know, the dog goes right over to the outlet and says, and then the guy says, yeah, it would be nice if the dog talked, because that would add a little something to the whole procedure. But the guy said, well, there you go, they're right where you said they were, and then you pay him $500, and then you have to clean all of your clothes, and you get into a kind of panic state, and then it's thousands of dollars later for somebody to treat with some kind of radioactive heat bath all of your sweaters and good suits, and then you think, well, oh my God, is there a word for the psychosis that comes along with bed bugs?
That was a really funny description of the process. A word for the psychosis?
Thank you.
No, I don't think there's a word for it. I would say that if I were to use a dog, though, if someone came into my house and used a dog, and the dog said they're bed bugs right there, I would want them to then
show me the bed bugs.
Because there are, the dogs do work to a degree if they're trained well, but there are also a lot of shady people out there trying to take your money, so.
They got all of mine.
With caution.
They got all of mine.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, that's what it is. Have you found that, being so associated with bed bugs has affected your relationship or anything?
I don't know. Mike? My husband's in the audience. Maybe he could tell you.
I assume you both share a protected mattress? Sweet.
Only the safest. Well, I mean, when I go to parties and stuff, there definitely is this thing where I think that people actually really like to talk about bed bugs, but they kind of like scratch a lot and ask me a lot of questions and say I don't want to know, and then lean closer and corner me to talk about bed bugs for an hour. So actually, I think people like talking about bed bugs.
Well, it's a little bit like the weather. We're all experiencing it, aren't we?
Yeah.
To some degree, whether we think we have or we're constantly informed by the fear that we might have, where we're looking. But the things, you can see the things. They're not invisible.
You can see them, yeah.
There was a time where all the great media outlets, Gothamist, Time Out, all the best ones here in the city, were just wild for it. There was a kind of hysteria going on. They'd cover anything that had to do with bed bugs, and you had, as you talk about, musicals and songs written and sonnets and all this kind of thing. But has that abated? It feels like that's gone away. And where are we now with the situation?
That has gone away a little bit. I mean, there's still times where it'll sort of bubble back up. Like you probably all remember last fall when there were bed bugs on the F train and Gothamist and all. They have this really funny art where they have bed bugs flying over the skyline, like shooting lasers at the city.
It's hilarious.
They trotted that back out.
Just imagine bugs shooting lasers, as if they weren't terrifying enough.
Right. So they do kind of bubble over into the media now and again. I mean, my book is out right now, so that's one example of that, although hopefully it's not in the same vein as
You're
movie
going to
stories.
stir it up again.
Yeah. Got to sell the books, remember?
Yeah, I
We
know.
talked about it earlier. So I think that there was a peak in the media coverage like in 2010 or something. I think part of the reason for that was because they were gone for so long. People were especially freaked out when they came back because they felt very alien and foreign. For a couple generations they hadn't been around, and we were like, what is that? We didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
But now that we're more used to it, I don't think the problem is getting better necessarily, although there are different numbers out there that like 311 calls are down. I don't think that necessarily really reflects what's going on. I think that people are just more aware, and they're still freaked out, but it's not so crazy to see bed bugs in places where people are because they follow us, like we're their food.
Wherever
so
we
the
are.
fact that they occasionally show up on the subway and like the conductor's car, or show up in a locker room at, I don't know, at Urban Outfitters or whatever that story was, that's not really that weird, and it's no longer that newsworthy. So I think that's partly why that has died down.
Yeah, well, we're probably safe here in a basement where a lot of improv students are coming and going. So I want to assure the audience that it's a pretty low risk kind of a situation.
You're all fine.
That you're in. But of course, now I travel a lot and stay at only the best hotels. You can imagine
I can
on
tell.
a podcaster's salary. And I always do the thing. I always check. I lift up the sheet and I check that thing, no matter what kind of a 5-star, whatever. I look for it and I keep my bags away, and I bring a plastic bag in case I need to wrap something. And that's all good practices, isn't it?
I think that those are similar things. I don't actually bring plastic bags, but those are similar things that I do myself. I mean, don't put your clothes on the bed, don't put your luggage on the bed. I think that unless there's a really horrible infestation in a hotel room, I don't think it's that likely to bring them home with you.
Yeah.
But still, there are steps you can take to
Do you bring
laundry
your
when you
own
come
sheets,
home.
own plastic wrap to put down?
I actually roll myself in saran wrap. and
That's a
sleep
good
like that.
idea. That is a nice image. But now, so we think, but they're going to go on, aren't they? With that, well, but they need us.
They do need us, but they also, I mean, there are about 100 different species of bed bugs, and some of them are actually
That's
specific
fun.
to other.
That's
yeah,
fun.
not all of them bite us though. There are, but this is kind of funny to people that haven't heard this before. There are poultry bugs and swallow bugs and bat bugs. There are different bugs that are kind of cousins to the bed bug, but live in like bat roosts and nests and follow them around. But the actual species that we deal with the most here also sometimes feeds on other animals too. So if we were to disappear, they probably would hang out with some bats. They'd be okay.
Well, that thwarts my plans a little bit, doesn't it? Living in an underground bunker is not going to do this any good. As the rest of humanity wastes away, they'll still thrive. Well, that's great. And this is the book. It's out now, doing well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's here, isn't it? And I'll tell you, I'm probably going to burn my copy when I'm done, just because there's little bugs inside too.
There are little bugs
maybe
inside. Not real ones, just drawings.
Thought that would be fun for a person
Photos.
dealing with something
I
like
had
that.
nothing to do with that actually, but it's kind of funny.
We like
It's
graphic
kinda funny.
designers and their sense of humor. That's wonderful. And can you stay around in case anybody else has some questions
Sure,
about it
I
as
love-
we go
I love
along? Because
questions.
there may be some things that come
Yeah,
up for people.
I'm staying up here?
Yes, you're going to stay
Should
right
I
up there in
move
the
over?
bright. Well, wait a second, and then
Sorry,
we'll
I don't know
say
how this works.
Brooke Borel, ladies and gentlemen.